if you're looking at the chart, we are now in the main theme, number 1. It's in F major, and this is the theme of the entire symphony. Beethoven had developed the idea of developing one motive, but here in the 8th symphony, he brings in 5 motives. As we go along, we'll meet these 5 motives. He has moved into number 2 now of the main theme, the reply to his first number 1 theme. So the sub-theme of the main theme. Now what he does is it doesn't stay in the F major for very long. As he moves into the sub-theme, he begins to modulate, and he modulates from F to D major. And here you are in number 3, the sub-theme, which is in D major. It's very lyrical, something that Beethoven is not very capable of, but he has, by the 8th symphony, developed quite a capability of slipping in lyrical pieces. Now he's bridging and modulating back to F major to the 4th theme, the 4th motive, the second part of the sub-theme. And this is number 4. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and they complete the exposition. This is the first movement, Allegro vivace e con brio. The tempo is very, very consistent, 69 beats per minute. And the conductor decides to repeat. So as the number 4 is ending, you will hear a little bridge passage. Remember that, because it's actually number 5, but we are not going on to the development. This is number 5, but we are repeating. Now, the timeline music commentary was developed for teachers and researchers to add information to the timeline, because we always tend to talk before or after the music. Now, what we've done is we've created a laboratory which allows people to add lines of information, and students and researchers and developers and even radio producers can bounce tracks up and down to make their final track. In my case, as I give you this commentary, it's actually meant to be a whisper in your ear as you listen to the piece in a live concert. And the purpose of such a commentary is to keep people engaged on the timeline. The timeline commentary is for people who want it or who need it, or for teaching to be done while the sound is heard. Many comments can be made on the timeline, but whoever makes it has to be very selective in the context in which these comments are made. And this particular commentary which I'm doing is an example of what I've done with my students who have no music background. So I'm keeping them engaged on the form and taking them through some of the key changes which not all will understand as a musician would. So the timeline can be as sophisticated as you want it, or as simple as what I've done here in the graphic. Now, of course, this is the exposition which we went through earlier, and we are coming towards the end of the exposition now. We're coming, and you will listen now to the bridge into the development. We are now moving into the section 1, and this is your number 5 bridging over, and it modulates into C major. Now from C, he keeps moving to many keys, and he spreads the theme 1 over 5. Section 1 is underlaid by 5, but he takes the main motive, number 1, and he breaks them up and he moves them around in different keys. That is the idea of the development. Let's just listen to it for a while. See, he's moved into yet another key. Now, section 1 leads to section 2. This is where section 2 comes in. Section 2 is actually the first motive, which is being treated in an extended form. It has not happened so far. So you can see him extemporizing, just using theme 1. So I put section 2 as 1A. And he's moving keys, moving into different tonalities, but underlying the whole section 2 with the fifth motive. So the entire development is actually resting on 5, but building up 1. And what he does is to slowly bring it back to the recapitulation. This is where the recapitulation starts. This is number 1 in recapitulation. It's back in F major. Now the recapitulation follows exposition, but not in the same form. Now this little bridge passage is actually number 6, the beginning of 6. It's a very curious little motive. Now number 2, we have number 2 here of the main theme in recapitulation. He does it very differently from number 2 in the exposition. And then he's moving to number 3, but listen carefully. He doesn't have number 3 in the same key. Number 3 is in F major, but it's done so subtly that one doesn't really notice it anymore. So we are in number 3 of the recapitulation, and this is the sub-theme. So you can see in the development of the symphony number 8 in particular, Beethoven has mastered the art of telling a story in music. That's number 4. And here you have number 4 enter in the recapitulation. He spends a bit of time on all the motives. You can see number 2, number 3, all mixed up and jumbled up. He's slowly bringing the recapitulation to some kind of conclusion, and that conclusion really has to be number 1. So watch how he moves from 4 to 5 to 1. And here you got the transition 5, and here he goes back into number 1. Now he stays on number 1 in the coda. It's not the coda yet. He's going to bring the coda in, but he's creating a whole scenario that is very, very different from his other symphonies. Usual Beethoven build-up, and then he does something very, very surprising, which is to bring the entire orchestra into a grand pause of sorts, which usually only occurs in concertos, but here it surprised everybody. And this is the 6th motive that everyone was hoping he would have developed, but somehow it's got its statement here. Now, from here onwards, it is the ending, and you can see he's concentrating just on number 1. He's also become jocular. By the 8th symphony, he was totally deaf, but his grasp of music was deep in his mind, and he also began to make subtle comments on contemporary composers who believed in great grand endings and so forth. So here he's playing around with soft and loud, big chords, juxtaposing chords, and ends just with number 1 in a very short and crisp manner.